we'll do it, man. We'll give ourselves a little bit of a foundation, kind of like a luxury vinyl foundation, to work through finding your P&L after assignment. Now, one thing I want to say just quickly is assignment is just not really something to be worried about. Again, yes, you might see some weird buying power numbers. Again, yes, you might have Scott Sheridan following you around your neighborhood. These things will happen when you are assigned, but still, it's not really that big of a deal. Besides, Scott Sheridan, he's a boomer. You can lose him pretty quickly. I mean, I'm driving a Honda Civic and I had my man dusted within 30, 45 seconds. So let's just all take this into account and make sure that we, give this the proper context. When you are assigned, or the whole idea of being assigned on a position is indeed a cost of doing business when you sell premium, right? When you sell options, when you are the option seller most of the time, the probability of being assigned on the position is always there. It's never zero. It's always some positive number, even if it's very, very low, 1%, 2%, a fraction of 1%, whatever it might be. You are going to be assigned at various points in your, premium selling career. And it's really not that big of a deal when you actually go through a couple of them and you realize, oh, that's really not that big of a deal. A couple of scary numbers, a Scott Sheridan tail or two, and then the next thing you know, it's over. Last week, when we unwound the assignment on Spotify, that would be a good show to watch. If you haven't seen it, if you didn't see it when it first came out, or you haven't checked it out in the archives, I think it would be well worth your investment, especially if you're brand new to selling options, because this is one thing that scares a lot of people. This is one thing that really spooks a lot of premium sellers, and I don't really know that it's warranted. I don't know that the spookage is indeed, I don't think it's warranted. I think it's a very simple thing to fix, and I went through that last week with Spotify. Well, today, Tesla's over and done with. I actually want to unpack our P&L. I want to unpack our P&L on the position, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Thankfully, tastytrade is going to do all the heavy lifting for us. We're not even going to have to do any of the heavy lifting ourselves, which makes sense because I'm not trying to get all big and blocky like y'all, man. I'm keeping it light. We're going high reps. We're just going for the tone and the sculpting here on this program. So, all right. So, Ryan, go ahead and bring us into the content here today. All right. So using the order chains inside of tastytrade makes finding your position, profit and loss after an assignment very simple and very, very clear. So the first thing that you want to understand, I've got a few blocks here that we can work through. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. With an option position only. So when you sell premium, right? If I sell a put or I sell a spread or, I sell an iron condor or whatever, which is of course just two spreads, it's fairly simple to keep track of your option P&L on the position, not only because obviously tastytrade does it for you, but even if it didn't do it for you, if you had to do it by hand or in your head or whatever, it's fairly simple to keep track of because you're only dealing with effectively option prices. You're only dealing with, kind of the same unit of measurement. And so kind of aggregating those and reconciling those together is a fairly simple process. Well, when you are assigned, what makes things really challenging, at least at first glance, is now all of a sudden all the units are different. Like you have option prices over here, you have stock prices over there, you have, Scott Sheridan menu prices somewhere else. And then the next thing you know, it's like, man, I don't really know how to put all these things together. Like I'm not really sure how these puzzle pieces fit. And so this is where the order chains feature inside of tastytrade can be really, really helpful and useful. And so I've got the share prices, I've got the option prices, everything's kind of been thrown out of whack. If I go into the order chains inside of tastytrade, which we're going to do this for Tesla, I'm able to aggregate all of this. I'm able to reconcile all of this fairly easily. Now, one final comment, and this is in the green box down there for all of my overachievers out there that have already digested the green box. Let me slow it down for all my ladies in the house, for the rest of us mere mortals here on the program. Whenever you're in doubt, whenever you are in doubt, whenever you are feeling like, man, I don't know where I'm at on this position. I really wish I could, know kind of where my current P&L was. How am I doing on the position? Am I up? Am I down? Am I break even? Whatever. The order chains will never let you down, right? Allison chains will never let you down, which is an obvious statement. The fact that I even have to say that out loud is crazy, right? Because you put on some man in the box, you are going to be ready to go. You put on some rooster, you are going to be ready to go. These are fact. There is no discussion. There is no debate. And so when you look at these things and you look at the Allison chains, it is going to set you straight and show you exactly where you are on whatever position, a spread, a naked option, something you've been rolling for 6 months. Like it's always going to kind of bring you back up to speed with the real time accuracy of where you're at on the trade. So, all right. So Ryan, go ahead and bring us back into the portfolio here. Just quick, fairly quick and painless there on the old slide. Let's take a look at what happened in Tesla. So let me go to my activity page first, because you're going to see some wackiness here on this activity page. So when I saw, now keep in mind, right? This was all happening under the gun. Like, this was me in my car, and I looked at my rear view. I saw Scott Sheridan. I'm like, man, I got to do this quick. I got to do this real quick. My orders kept getting rejected. I was trying to close the whole thing out, and I was just kept getting kicked back to me. And I was like looking in my rear view, and it was Scott Sheridan manually kicking it back to me. That's what I'm getting. This is crazy. Like, this is the ultimate game of cat and mouse. And so I said, all right, man, here's what we're going to do. We're going to break this thing up. I'm going to break this thing up. I'm going to close the shares, and then I'm going to close the option. And so that's why you see all these rejected orders right here for unfavorable prices. All kidding aside, obviously it was not Scott Sheridan behind me, although that's what it felt like. That's honestly what it felt like there in the moment. Sometimes when you are dealing with a stock with fairly wide markets, and sometimes when you're dealing with, a closing order that's, close to expiration or whatever, sometimes the tastytrade software, if you are, when you fill an order, let's say, that's the easiest way to put this. When you fill an order on trade entry or trade exit, but usually trade exit, you see the market below the order that you're trying to fill. So you have a mark price or some mid price, right? Then you have a bid, and then you have an ask. Well, if that gets really, really wide and it's difficult to get a fill in that stock for whatever reason, if you try to, sell below the bid or too far below the bid, tastytrade will kick it back to you and say, hey, this is a really unfavorable price for you based on the mark price. We don't think that this is a fair price for you to get filled at. We essentially recommend, not going in at this price, which is all fine and dandy, but it's a little bit tricky when you've been assigned and you kind of need to get out right now. And so if this ever happens to you, which I'm sure it's happened to some of you out there, watching the show now, if it hasn't happened to you, it will happen to you at one point or another. This is just another thing, though, that's really not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal at all. All you need to do is exactly what I did right here. You see, the last two line items here in the activity page. All you have to do is just break it apart. Just break it apart, close one side, and then close the other side. So you may not be able to close it all as a package, right? Which is what we were able to do in Spotify. So again, go back and watch the show from last week. You'll see the fact that we did that live on the show. We unwound the assignment. We didn't get kicked back by any, rejected orders. It was all clean. It was all smooth and easy. But sometimes it won't be. And if that's the case, my recommendation is just break it apart. And so that would be the easiest way to do that. So that's why you see all this craziness in here. And could the developers, create something or develop something, might be a better way to put it, where, hey, you've been assigned, you're close to expiration, and you just kind of need to get out and just kind of, give us some kind of trip switch or something that can kind of override, an unfavorable price. Yeah, I think so. I think that would be a nice thing to add. But again, it's not really that big of a deal. So this is what happened. Let's see, 8/16. This was yesterday. Yeah, I thought it was yesterday. So yesterday we did this, fairly close to the end of the day. And so we were, checking it out again. We had our 100 shares of Tesla, and I couldn't hold that for very long. And so, so that's what happened. All right. What I'm going to do now, though, is let me clear that away. Let's go ahead and let's bring up the Allison chains here for Tesla. And you can see this is all the relevant information. Right, so this is all the relevant information that is going to be needed to compute our P&L on the position. Now, you can see that obviously the order chains and tastytrade make it really easy. We don't have to work through all this, but we're going to, because we would lose so much fun in the process if we didn't. My total P&L on the position is minus $327. Now, keep in mind that the vertical that I opened up was $2.02. So this was my opening trade right there for 202. So again, if we look at a $5 wide, we had a $5 wide vertical, right? $5 wide vertical. And I sold it for $2.02, right? This was my sale price. So obviously, if I net those two things together, my maximum loss on the trade should have been $298. So it should have been $298. Now you look up at this and you're like, wait a minute, Jim, this is not $298. This is $328, right? So you lost an extra $30. I did. And that was essentially the product of it being fairly wide markets at the time that I closed the order. And again, this is one of the cost of doing business in one of these, these big boy kind of Megatron stocks. I mean, Tesla's only $200 a share now, so it's not like it used to be, at 2000 or whatever. But still, I mean, you get caught in a market where the bid-ask spread differentials are fairly wide and it's hard to get filled. These are the types of things that are going to happen to you. And so I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't happen. I'm not going to sugarcoat this and tell you that it will never happen to you, because neither of those things are true. You can see it for yourself with your own two eyes that it happened to us right here, and it will happen to you from time to time too. Again, it's a cost of doing business when it comes to selling premium. But this was, the situation that we had ourselves in. This was our strategy. $5 wide vertical, sold it for 202. Maximum loss was 298. We ended up losing 328. But let's clear all that away and let's reconcile all of these numbers here. Again, tastytrade has already done it for us, but let's take, 7.5 minutes and let's unpack quickly. That's pretty efficient from theory to practice. Let's unpack quickly how you arrive at that number. So the first thing is, we effectively, when we were assigned, we bought shares for $280, right? So I bought my shares for $280. So if I just take, my 280, if I take my 280 as my purchase price of the shares, so that's negative, right? I bought my shares for 280. That was the assignment. That was the option that I was assigned on. I was able to sell those shares for $228.75. $228.75. So these are all going to be, additions to this minus 280. I picked up 202 on trade entry, right? Picked up 202 on trade entry. And then I also picked up 45.95 from selling that put back out, which was the last thing I did. So you saw that was itemized in the activity statement, right? I just showed that to you guys a couple of seconds ago. That's also right here. You can see I sold that put back for 45.95. So, all right, so let me break out my calculator here really quick. Let's go ahead and do some really quick math. So if I do 228.75 plus 202 plus 45.95, very new school, very modern technology that we're using here today, is 276.72. If I then subtract the 280 from that, what I'm left with, so when you sum all this together, you're minus 328. Right? Now, again, that's per share. There's 100 shares in a one lot, so that's going to be minus $328. Again, it's rounding to the nearest dollar just to make things a little bit simpler. Boom. Where else do you see this number? You also see this number up here, right? Minus 328. And so that's how you arrive at your P&L from an assignment. So again, you don't have to work through all this. You don't have to go through line by line. You don't have to add it up on your iPhone or on your calculator or whatever. Get a little slide rule action out there. Like tastytrade does it all for you. It's already done in the order chains. And so, they make it easy. They make it simple. I just wanted to go through this because I had to confess that I did trade off the show, which again, is not something I try to do often. But when you've got Scott Sheridan on your tail, you got to do things. You got to make decisions. You got to make moves. And so we did that yesterday. But I did want to kind of, offer up a bit of an olive branch here today and hopefully bring things back to baseline. So